The message arrived at Outpost Helios during the night cycle, when most of the 3,000 colonists were asleep in their hab modules. Captain Yuki Tanaka wasn't sleeping. She never did during inventory weeks, not when 15,000 tons of refined titanium sat in the depot waiting for transport. The mining colony hung in the darkness beyond the Veil Nebula, far from Earth's core systems, far from help. "Captain, we've got something on long-range sensors," called Private Jonah's Webb from the command deck. The kid was fresh from training, still had that eager shine in his eyes that made Tanaka feel ancient at 37. She moved to his station, coffee in hand, expecting another asteroid or maybe a surveyor drone. What she saw made her set the cup down carefully, precisely, the way you do when your hands want to shake but you can't let them. "Those are warships," Webb whispered. 15 contacts. Angular, aggressive designs that didn't match any human configuration. They moved in perfect formation, cutting through space like knives through silk. Tanaka's fingers flew across the console. "Get me a connection to Earth Defense Command. Priority Alpha." At this distance, response time would be. "I know how long it takes, Webb. Do it anyway." Aboard the lead VA-Thren vessel, Commander Bresic watched the human outpost with clinical interest. The structure was primitive, elegant in its simplicity but clearly designed for industry rather than defense. No weapons platforms. No fighter escort. Barely any shielding. "This is the species the galaxy fears," muttered his tactical officer. Bresic had wondered the same thing. High Arbiter Qilvon had spent 3 cycles convincing the Hegemony Council that this test was necessary. The humans had to be evaluated. Their legends had to be proven false. Too much trade territory remained unexplored because of ancient stories about the ape spawn from the Blue World. Stories, Bresic thought, told by species who lost wars generations ago and needed excuses. "Hail them," Bresic ordered. "Let's see if they're reasonable." The transmission crackled through Outpost Helios's command center. Captain Tanaka found herself staring at a reptilian face, scaled and crowned with crystalline growths that might have been decorative or biological, she couldn't tell. "Human settlement." The voice was smooth, almost friendly. "You occupy territory claimed by the VA-Thren hegemony. Evacuate within 1 standard hour. Leave your equipment and resources. This is your only warning." Tanaka glanced at Webb. The kid looked terrified. She probably should feel terrified too, but instead she felt something else rising in her chest. Something cold and old. "This is Captain Yuki Tanaka, commander of Outpost Helios. This colony operates under the jurisdiction of the United Earth Authority. You're in violation of the Outer Territories Treaty. Leave now, and we'll consider this a navigation error." There was a pause. Then Bresic laughed. "You have no fleet nearby. Our intelligence confirms this. You have 1 hour, Captain. Be grateful we're offering that much." The transmission ended. Webb turned to her, pale. "Captain, we need to evacuate. If we start now, we'd get maybe 300 people to the transport ships before they fired," Tanaka interrupted quietly. She pulled up the colony roster. 3,247 names. Families. Children. The Gonzalez twins had just turned 6 last week. She opened a different channel. Not to Earth Defense Command. To something older. "This is Outpost Helios broadcasting on emergency frequency Omega-7. Hostile contact. 15 warships. Unknown configuration. They've given us 1 hour." She paused, choosing her next words carefully, knowing they would matter. "This is not a drill. This is not a negotiation. The colonies are under direct threat." Omega-7 was a frequency nobody used anymore. It dated back to the corporate wars, to the Mars Rebellion, to times when humanity fought itself with the same ferocity it once used against nature. It was the frequency that said, "We are being exterminated." Webb stared at her. What happens now?" Tanaka pulled up the colony-wide intercom. If these were her last minutes, her people deserved to spend them with truth, not false hope. "All residents of Outpost Helios. This is Captain Tanaka. We have hostile warships in orbit. We cannot evacuate in time. We cannot defend ourselves." She steadied her voice. "But we are not alone. Earth will know. Earth will remember. And Earth will respond." She closed the channel and looked at Webb. "Now? Now we show them why the galaxy should have left us alone." 53 minutes later, Commander Bresic gave the order. Lance beams cut through Outpost Helios like surgical instruments. The station broke apart silently, beautifully, scattering into the void in pieces that glittered like snow. Bresic watched it die and felt nothing. This was mercy. This was how civilized species conducted war: quick, clean, minimal suffering. Send the report to High Arbiter Qilvon, he ordered. The humans offered no resistance. Target eliminated. Awaiting further orders. His tactical officer nodded, but something bothered Bresic. A detail. A small thing. Commander, the humans continued transmitting even as we fired. Multiple frequencies. Some we couldn't decode. Distress calls. Natural response. Yes, sir. But some of the transmissions weren't asking for help. The officer pulled up the data. They were sending information. Tactical data. Our ship configurations, weapon signatures, attack patterns. Everything. Bresic frowned. To whom? There are no other human vessels within light hours of this position. Unknown, sir. But they sent it everywhere. Every frequency, every direction, continuous stream until the moment the station's power core died. For the first time, Bresic felt something like doubt. Why would a dying outpost waste its final moments sending tactical data into empty space? Unless the space wasn't as empty as they thought. Or unless the humans weren't planning to negotiate. Across the sector, in 100 colonies and stations and survey ships, humans stopped what they were doing. They heard the message. They saw the data. They watched Outpost Helios die. And in that moment, something ancient stirred in the human species. Not anger. Not grief. Something simpler and far more terrifying. Recognition. The galaxy had reminded humanity what it was. Fleet Marshal Dmitry Volkov stood in the command center of the UAS Triumph, watching the tactical display with eyes that hadn't blinked in 3 minutes. Around him, 200 officers worked in near silence, the only sounds the soft beeping of consoles and the whisper of recycled air. Confirmation from all battle groups, reported Lieutenant Zara Okonkwo from her station. We have 53 vessels in position across 7 sectors. The Vathren don't know we're here yet. Volkov nodded slowly. He was 62 years old, had served in the Belt conflicts and the Titan incident, and had sincerely hoped he'd never need to use the protocols currently active in his fleet. But hope was a luxury. Dead colonists were reality. Status on the adaptive network. Dr. Kenji Sato emerged from the research bay, tablet in hand. The weapons researcher looked exhausted, like he'd aged 10 years in the past 18 hours. The AI is fully integrated across all vessels. Every sensor feed, every weapon discharge, every tactical decision flows through the learning matrix. We'll adapt faster than they can strategize. And the psychological cost? Volkov asked quietly. Sato hesitated. Our pilots will be flying ships that learn from their deaths, Marshal. Every casualty makes the fleet smarter. It's efficient. It's horrifying, Volkov corrected. But it's what we have. He turned to the main display, where Commander Bresic's fleet sat in orbit around a small Vathren supply depot, celebrating their easy victory over Outpost Helios. They think they fought miners and won. Let's introduce them to what humanity sends after the miners die. Lieutenant Okonkwo checked her fighter squadron status. 36 pilots, all volunteers, all fully briefed on the adaptive warfare protocols. Some of them would die in the next hour. Their ships would record everything, every impact, every failure, every weakness in Vathren defenses, and share it instantaneously with the fleet. They would die so others could learn to kill better. She'd volunteered first. All squadrons report ready, she said, her voice steady despite the ice in her stomach. Volkov allowed himself one moment of human emotion, a deep breath, a closed eye, a silent prayer to gods he didn't believe in. Then he opened his eyes and became what the moment required. Execute Operation Nightfall. All groups, engage. Across 7 sectors simultaneously, human warships dropped out of stealth. No warnings. No hails. No negotiations. They simply appeared and opened fire. Commander Bresic was reviewing supply manifests when his entire command deck turned red with alarm lights. Report, he shouted, springing from his chair. Contacts. Multiple contacts. They're everywhere. His tactical officer's voice cracked with panic. I count 20 vessels, no, 30, they're still appearing. Configuration matches human destroyer class M. The ship shuddered. Something had hit their starboard shield with enough force to make the deck plates vibrate. Return fire. All batteries. Bresic gripped his command console. How did they get here so fast? Helios was destroyed only 18 hours ago. Another impact. Stronger. The lights flickered. Sir, their weapons are, they're adapting. The first 3 shots bounced off our shields. The 4th one penetrated. The 5th went straight through. Bresic stared at the tactical display in disbelief. Human ships moved in patterns that made no tactical sense, aggressive, reckless formations that should have made them easy targets. But every time his gunners locked on and fired, the humans adjusted. Not ship by ship. All of them at once. They're learning, he whispered. Lieutenant Okonkwo dove her fighter through a gap in the VA-Thren formation, weaving between lance beams that turned space into a light show. Her targeting computer screamed warnings she ignored. Raven 3, I'm making a run at their command ship's shield generator, she transmitted. Painting the target now. Raven 3, you're too close. You'll get caught in the... I know. Mark the data. She accelerated straight toward the massive VA-Thren cruiser. Its point defense systems swiveled toward her, tracking, calculating. She didn't try to evade. Instead, she held perfectly steady, letting them hit her. The first shot clipped her wing. The second struck her forward shield. The third punched through her cockpit canopy. In the microsecond before her fighter exploded, her ship's AI recorded everything: the exact frequency of the VA-Thren weapons, the targeting algorithm pattern, the power distribution sequence. It transmitted all of it to the fleet network. Lieutenant Zara Okonkwo died at 0847 hours. By 0848 hours, every human fighter in the sector knew exactly how to evade those same point defense systems. 3 more pilots repeated her sacrifice at different locations. Each death taught the fleet something new. Within minutes, human fighters moved through VA-Thren defenses like they'd been practicing for years. Dr. Soto watched the data flow through his screens, tears streaming down his face. It's working, he whispered. God forgive us, it's working. Volkov stood motionless, watching young men and women turn themselves into lessons. This was the horror humanity brought to warfare, the willingness to transform death into data, grief into tactical advantage. All capital ships, advance, he ordered. Make their deaths count. Commander Bresic watched his fleet disintegrate. Not slowly, not through attrition, but through systematic dismantling. The humans fought like they were reading his mind, anticipating every maneuver, countering every tactic before he could fully deploy it. Commander, we need to retreat. We've lost 6 vessels and... No. Bresic's voice was hollow. Send a message to High Arbiter Qel Von. Tell him we were wrong. Tell him the legends weren't exaggerations. Sir. Tell him the humans don't fight wars. They solve them. Another massive impact rocked the ship. Bresic looked at the human fleet advancing in perfect coordination, each ship covering another's weakness, the entire formation moving like a single organism with 50 minds. And tell him, Bresic continued quietly, that we've made a terrible mistake. Because these humans? They're not angry. They're not emotional. They're just efficient. The Triumph's main lance cannon fired, punching through the VA-Thren flagship's weakened shields. The beam carved through the ship's reactor core with surgical precision. Volkov watched it die and felt nothing. No satisfaction. No victory. Just the cold knowledge that Outpost Helios had been avenged, and 3,247 names could be marked as answered. Dr. Soto, how many casualties? 14 fighters, 2 corvettes. Total personnel loss, 43. 43 humans dead to destroy a fleet of 15 VA-Thren warships. The adaptive AI had performed beyond projections. Record their names, Volkov said quietly. Every single one. They earned what comes next. What comes next, Marshal? Volkov pulled up the navigation charts. The VA-Thren hegemony had 17 military installations within strike range. His fleet had already plotted intercept courses for all of them. Next, we teach the galaxy why they used to whisper our name in the dark. We remind them that humanity doesn't do proportional responses. We show them what happens when you mistake our peace for weakness. He looked at his officers, young faces, old eyes, all of them understanding what they were about to become. We don't just win wars, Volkov said softly. We make sure nobody wants to start one with us again. Deploy all battle groups. Operation Nightfall continues until the VA-Thren understand that attacking human colonies doesn't start a negotiation. He paused, watching the burning wreckage of the VA-Thren fleet tumble through space. It starts an extinction event. Across the sector, human warships vanished back into stealth, carrying their lessons and their dead toward the next target. Behind them, automated buoys began broadcasting a simple message in every known language. Outpost Helios. 3,247 souls. They will be remembered. You will answer for them. The galaxy was about to learn what humanity's mercy looked like. And it would be more terrifying than their wrath. High Arbiter Qil Von stood in the Hegemony Council chamber, watching his political career collapse in real time. The holographic displays showed 17 separate engagements across VA-Thren territory, 17 military installations, offline or destroyed. The humans weren't invading. They were erasing. You promised us this would be a simple evaluation, hissed Council Member Threnke, her crystalline crown pulsing angry crimson. You said humanity was a dormant threat, easily measured and contained. I was operating on the best intelligence. Your intelligence was 300 cycles old. Another counselor slammed appendages against their podium. The humans have evolved. They've been preparing. And you woke them up. Qil Von felt his throat sacs constrict with stress. We are the VA-Thren hegemony. We have 60,000 warships across 200 worlds. They have a fraction of our numbers. Mathematics alone. The chamber doors opened. An ancient VA-Thren shuffled in, scales dulled with age, moving with the careful precision of someone who'd seen empires rise and fall. Elder historian Vynma rarely attended council sessions anymore. His presence now silenced the room. You wish to test humanity, Vynma's voice creaked like old wood. Allow me to share what our ancestors learned when they made that same mistake. He activated a data crystal, projecting images into the air. Ancient footage, grainy and damaged, but clear enough. Humans fighting. Not in organized formations, but in desperate, brutal swarms. Ships ramming into superior vessels. Soldiers charging weapons that should have stopped them. Cities burning while their inhabitants refused to surrender. The species you provoked doesn't calculate victory, Vynma continued. They calculate acceptable losses. Do you understand the difference? They will trade 10 ships for one of yours and call it progress. They will sacrifice 1,000 soldiers to learn how to kill one of you better. They turn attrition into an advantage because they have weaponized their own mortality. Qil Von stared at the images. But that's insane. No, Vynma corrected gently. That's humanity. And now you must face Ambassador Cross. The name sent a ripple through the council. Everyone had heard of Sienna Cross. The human diplomat who negotiated the Proxima Accords without yielding a single clause. The woman who smiled while delivering ultimatums. She's already here, Vynma added. She's been waiting outside for 3 hours. She wanted you to feel the anticipation. Fleet Marshal Volkov received the transmission aboard the Triumph as his fleet regrouped near the VA-Thren border. Ambassador Cross appeared on screen, her silver hair pulled back severely, her expression carved from ice. Marshal, the VA-Thren have requested negotiations. I'm going in. Do you need an escort? Cross's smile was sharp enough to cut steel. No. They need to see one unarmed human walking into their council chamber. It'll terrify them more than your entire fleet. Volkov understood. After 3 weeks of systematic military defeats, the VA-Thren expected anger, expected threats. Ambassador Cross would give them something worse, absolute confidence. What are your terms? He asked. Complete demilitarization of all VA-Thren installations within 50 light-years of human space. Reparations equivalent to rebuilding Outpost Helios 3 times over. Public acknowledgement of their violation of territorial sovereignty. And? Cross's expression hardened. 3,247 individual memorials. One for every person they killed. With their names engraved in every VA-Thren diplomatic station in the galaxy. I want every alien who walks past them to read those names and remember what happens when you touch humanity's civilians. Volkov nodded slowly. They'll never agree to that last part. It's humiliating. Yes. Which is why they'll agree to it. Because the alternative is we continue our current course, and High Arbiter Qil Von knows exactly how that ends. She was right, of course. The VA-Thren military was larger, but humanity had already demonstrated something far more valuable than numbers, the ability to learn faster than the enemy could adapt. Every battle made the human fleet deadlier. Every casualty refined their tactics. The VA-Thren could win through attrition, but they'd lose 50 ships for every human vessel destroyed. And humans had already proven they considered that exchange acceptable. Ambassador Cross walked into the Hegemony Council chamber alone, her footsteps echoing in the vast space. 60 counselors watched her approach. She didn't bow. Didn't acknowledge their authority. Simply stood at the center podium and waited. High Arbiter Qilvan spoke first, trying to maintain dignity. Ambassador Cross, the Viethran hegemony welcomes. Let me save us both time, Cross interrupted smoothly. You attacked Outpost Alios to test humanity's response capability. You now have your data. The question is whether you're intelligent enough to understand it. Murmurs rippled through the council. No one spoke to the hegemony this way. We have assessed the situation, Qilvan replied stiffly. While your military response has been notable, you must understand that continued aggression against the hegemony will result in what? Cross stepped forward. Full mobilization? You've already lost 17 installations. Fleet Marshal Volkov has another 100 targets plotted. We can continue this for years if necessary. Can you? She pulled up a holographic display. Economic data. Trade routes disrupted. Military spending skyrocketing. Political instability within the hegemony as member species question Qilvan's leadership. Your economy is already faltering. 3 member species have filed withdrawal notices. Your military is demoralized because they are fighting an enemy that learns from dying. How many more defeats can your coalition survive before it collapses? Qilvan's throat sacs contracted. She'd done her research. Every word was accurate. Elder Vynma spoke into the silence. What are humanity's terms? Cross turned to him, recognizing a worthy opponent. Demilitarization of border sectors. Reparations. Public acknowledgement of wrongdoing. And memorials, 3,247 of them, bearing the names of every person you killed. The memorials are unacceptable, Threnka hissed. You ask us to advertise our defeat. No, Cross corrected. I'm asking you to remember. Because here's what you don't understand about humanity, we never forget. Every name from Outpost Alios is already memoized by 10,000 schoolchildren on Earth. Every face is displayed in our capital. We carry our dead with us. Always. She let that sink in. You wanted to test whether humanity was still dangerous. Here's your answer. We're not dangerous because we have better weapons or faster ships. We're dangerous because we remember every wrong done to us, and we have the patience to answer each one. You killed 847 people, and in response, we've systematically dismantled your military presence across 7 sectors. That's not anger. That's mathematics. Qilvan felt his authority crumbling. If we refuse your terms? Cross's smile was colder than vacuum. Then Fleet Marshal Volkov continues Operation Nightfall. We'll destroy every military installation you have until you have no choice but to agree. The only difference will be how many Viethran die before you accept the inevitable. Your choice, Arbiter. The council chamber fell silent. Councillors exchanged glances. Political calculations shifted. Finally, Elder Vynma rose slowly. The hegemony accepts humanity's terms. Qilvan started to protest, but Threnka cut him off. We accept. The memorials will be constructed. The reparations will be paid. Cross nodded once. Excellent. Fleet Marshal Volkov will withdraw to defensive positions pending demilitarization verification. You have 6 standard months to comply. She turned to leave, then paused. One more thing. You wanted to know if humanity's legends were true. If the stories about our capacity for violence were exaggerated. She looked back at the council, and for a moment, they saw something ancient in her eyes. Something that had climbed out of caves and conquered a world through sheer, blood-minded persistence. The legends weren't exaggerated, Cross said quietly. They were sanitized. We've spent 10,000 years learning to kill each other more efficiently. Every war, every conflict, every battlefield taught us something new. You attacked one mining colony and discovered what happens when those lessons get applied to external threats. She walked toward the door, her footsteps impossibly loud. Consider yourselves fortunate. We showed you our mercy. Be grateful you never see our commitment. The doors closed behind her. In the council chamber, no one spoke. Finally, one junior counselor whispered what everyone was thinking. What are they? Elder Vynma answered, his voice heavy with centuries of knowledge. They are what happens when a species fights itself for millennia and learns to call it practice. They are apex predators who discovered cooperation. They are the reason the galaxy whispers their legends in the dark. He looked at Qilvan directly. They are the species you should have left sleeping. 3 months later, the first memorial was unveiled at the Viethran embassy on Threshold Station. A simple black wall bearing 3,247 names, carved in human script and victories glyphs. Ambassador Cross attended the ceremony. She placed her hand on the wall, feeling the engraved letters of Captain Yuki Tanaka and Private Jonas Webb. Fleet Marshal Volkov stood beside her. Will this be enough? No, Cross replied. But it's a start. The galaxy needed to remember that humanity doesn't start wars for glory or conquest. We start them when we have no other choice. And we finish them. Volkov watched alien dignitaries file past the memorial, reading names, understanding finally what they'd really done. Not just destroyed a station. Killed individuals. People with names, families, dreams. Do you think they've learned? He asked. Cross considered. For now. Until the next species forgets. Until someone else decides to test whether the legends are true. And when that happens? She smiled, sad and certain. Then we'll remind them again. Because that's what we do. We remember our dead. We honor their names. And we make absolutely certain their deaths mean something. Across the galaxy, in council chambers and military academies, in civilian homes and research stations, beings of 100 species looked at the data from the victories conflict and drew one universal conclusion. Never wake humanity's armada. Not because humans were the strongest or the fastest or the most advanced. But because they were the most persistent. The most adaptable. The species that turned every defeat into education and every casualty into motivation. The galaxy continued to whisper humanity's legends. But now those whispers carried new understanding. The terror wasn't what humans could do. It was what humans would do, patiently, methodically, inevitably, to anyone who threatened their own. And in the darkness beyond Earth's borders, the silent armada returned to its vigil. Waiting. Watching. Ready to wake again if needed. Because humanity's greatest weapon wasn't technology or tactics. It was memory. And humans never, ever forgot.